All right, what's up, folks? We are here early on a Tuesday. That's right. UFC 288 slate preview, DraftKings, FanDuel, some early bets, early thoughts on the DFS slate, lineup advice this early in the week, switching it up a bit. So, welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co founder at Occupy Fantasy, joined by Jake the Snake, owner of MMA DFS.com. Jake, what's up, man? Good to talk to you this early in the week. Exciting. What's up?
Yeah, man, it's been a while. So we're back here on a Tuesday, and hopefully we have some useful information to talk about this early in the week.
Yeah, so a little bit of a change of a schedule for those of you who normally check into these videos. We're doing this live. It will be available on replay, obviously, but I'm out of town this weekend. Can't do the normal video. Feel like we had to get something out for UFC 288. And so we're going to do the slate preview. See, we actually had, I know, Jake, I'm sure some of your subscribers to your site and some of the Occupy members have reached out and said, hey, we'd love to hear something earlier in the week. And we were never really sure how to do it. But we're gonna see how this goes. And since I can't do it this weekend, we're gonna do this video, and Jake's gonna be in the Occupy Fantasy Discord server on Saturday doing a live voice Q&A. So we'll combine it all together. And again, if you guys have questions, what you want to hear this early in the week is really what's most important. So go ahead and throw it in the live chat here. And I see we got Patrick in here. He says, think these will be good. Watching the video, have something to chew on before the plug comes out. So yeah, I agree. As far as the actual content goes, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but normal content, right? So the plug, your stuff, model, everything's gonna be out Friday, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so everything's out Friday. Really, what we're going to do here, we've done some early work. We obviously have a lot of opinions about most of these fighters. We've done some early prep work on the newcomers, two main events here. So we'll talk about it. And again, if you guys have questions, let us know. So, Jake, we have 14 fights on the card, barely 14 fights on the card. We do have 14 fights though, and you and I were both shocked when we found out that the Burns Muhammad fight was a 5 rounder. Just didn't really expect that initially. Didn't even think about it because it was put together on such short notice. We do have two 5 round fights, and the interesting thing that you and I were both talking about today is that the pricing of these fights on DraftKings pricing came out on Sunday, I believe, if not earlier. But Burns Muhammad 8,200 8K, and the rare 8,100 double fighter was Cejudo and Sterling. What were your first thoughts when you saw the pricing?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty crazy, right? We get four 5 round fighters all clustered within 200 of you, 200 price range on DraftKings. I mean, it's pretty nuts based on what it allows you to do. I think in low risk, a lot of people will play all four because it lets you play two expensive fighters with them. So I think it'll be kind of an easy leverage point in low risk, just knowing that a lot of people are going to do that, and there's going to be a lot of two v two competition. And then in high risk, I mean, obviously it makes it a little bit tougher for the winners in those fights to get left out just because of their cheaper price tag. But we have a big enough slate that I still think it's definitely possible. There's enough. We have 12 other fights where someone could put up 110 points, and the winner in these 5 round fights could put up 90, 95, 100 points, still get left out, even at their cheaper price tag, which the field probably won't account for enough. So, we'll see those 4 5 round fighters really popular. And I think most of the rest of the slate is going to be pretty low owned outside of, maybe Ivliov, who now gets the short notice opponent. But, I think we're going to have a ton of low owned options on the slate. So I think it's a really good slate. I think it's going to have a lot of leverage points.
Love to hear that. And yeah, the interesting thing is, right, with this pricing, and if you think about low risk, and obviously I have low risk on the mind with the MMA Championship Round 1 starting this weekend. I mean, historically, we don't see 4 5 round fighters in winning cash game lineups, winning low risk lineups. So we'll have to figure out who we're going to exclude here. I'm still thinking, obviously, this is very early, but we're still probably going to want to stack one of the fights and play one from the other 5 rounder, I'd imagine. How we figure that out is going to be quite the task this week.
I'm thinking we're fading Cejudo here. I think we play the other three, but that's my initial take. We'll see if anything changes over the next few days. But he's the lowest volume. He's the oldest. Well, he's the same age as Burns. I'm not sure on what month they were both born offhand, but he lands the least volume. He's the least active. Coming off the 3 year layoff, he has the most red flags around him. I get that he's the favorite slightly in that fight, but I don't know, man. I would say he's the easiest fade in my opinion, looking at the four guys.
And obviously, this has to be said, right? When we get something right, we're going to pat ourselves on the back. But if you look at the last time a former champion came off a 3-year layoff, and we said he was the easiest fade on the planet, he proceeded to submit Cyril Gahn in milliseconds. So I don't think this is. I don't think you can really compare the two situations here, right?
Nah.
Gahn obviously had a massive disadvantage on the mat, and we knew that going in. Can't really say the same thing here with Cejudo having a massive strength and Sterling having a massive disadvantage. So I tend to agree with you there. And Londo in the chat, what's up, says, if you had to pick one, would you fade the main event or the co-main event? So judging this early in the week, it sounds like, let's just say we're playing the $25 big GPP. If you had to fade one, I assume you're thinking fading Cejudo Sterling fight, right?
Think so, man. Sterling could score okay, but yeah, I think that the Burns Bilal fight, I think that those guys have a little bit more to fight for here because they're trying to fight to make a case for the next title shot. I know it's on short notice. That adds like a whole another variable. That fight was put together on like 16 days notice. So who knows what's up with the cardio? But that also means one of them could fade, another one could score a ton of points if we see someone gas out late. Whereas I think the other fight, the Cejudo and Sterling fight, I think it's going to be closer. I don't think that one guy is just going to dominate the other, unless, I mean, maybe Henry comes back and looks like a bum, but I think he'll be able to hold his own. I think that we'll kind of see the grappling cancel each other out. I think it could turn into, a lower volume kickboxing battle where the winner scores like 90 or 95 points. So I can see a clear path for that one busting, where I think Burns and Bilal, they're probably going to throw down. I think it's going to be higher volume.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. And again, it's a lot of this is going to change, especially as lines move throughout the week, and we get official numbers into your projections, our model, ownership. All this is going to play a part into all of this. So I know, Jake, obviously you give out early bets for your premium subscribers at MMADFS.com. And obviously we like to look to line moves later in the week to get a little bit of sense of who's going to be popular, who's not going to be. I've seen some early line moves, but what have you seen so far as maybe from the time the pricing was released? Who's getting some action in the betting markets, and as a result could end up being a little more popular than their salary indicates?
Yeah, so a big one I think is going to be Braxton Smith. Heavyweight newcomer, only 7,600. When I locked the lines in Sunday night, he was plus 155. He's now plus 135. And everyone remembers Parker Porter getting knocked out in like 60 seconds by Justin Tafa recently. So I think recency bias is going to have people wanting to target Braxton Smith anyways. So that line's coming up. I think that's going to drive up his ownership. Daniel Santos, also a 20-cent line move, coming off a massive score. Potentially that'll drive his line a little bit. And then the newcomer, Esteban, we've already seen his line go from negative 175 Sunday night to negative 200 now. And, I think he looks pretty promising in terms of his scoring potential.
Yeah, so we've already seen some of these younger guys or fighters who don't have many or any fights in the UFC see some line move in their favor. And what's interesting, you and I were discussing today, just throwing out some early ownership ideas. All of these guys are priced right around the main event. So you could look at this a couple of ways, right? Maybe that pulls some ownership from the main event, but I think in reality, and you're the expert here when it comes to ownership projections, what we probably see more likely if these line movements hold is that those guys probably go a little bit lower owned than they would on any other card, just because the main event is right next to them. The main event's 5 rounds, and there was a question in the chat about the co-main event. Yeah, we're shocked that is 5 rounds, Muhammad and Burns. So Jake, yeah, I think even though those guys are technically mispriced, we may not see their ownership get out of control because of the number of fights on the card, but both 5-rounders are right next to them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, we're going to see their ownership come in, like 10, 15% maybe lower than it would be if we were on like a 13 fight card with one 5-round fight.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned the newcomer. Let's talk about some of these guys. We actually have 5 now. So for those of you who didn't hear today, you see the warning here on the DraftKings lineup page. Bryce Mitchell has withdrawn from the fight. He is out. I think it just immediately assumed that fight would be scrapped, but we actually have a newcomer, short notice, coming in to fight Evloev. So we'll talk about him here in a little bit. So 5 guys now are now making their UFC debut on this card, and we'll go from most expensive to least expensive, and maybe just talk a little bit about them, Jake. And I would say the most well known, perhaps the brightest prospect of the group, is Ikram Alaskerov, who, if you're in the MMA world or you've been around for a while, you know that almost undefeated. His only loss was to Hamzat Chimaev. And that battle, when we were charting Chimaev, was touted as two bright young prospects undefeated. Someone zero is going to be gone. Chimaev just absolutely puts him to sleep on the feet. But what was impressive to me, Jake, I mean, you see Chimaev in any other fight, right? He grounds people like nearly immediately. And Alaskarov literally defended all four takedowns relatively easily. So we know this guy's really good. And quick win on the Contender Series. But there's a reason he's so good on the ground. He's like combat sambo world champion, right?
Yeah, man. Dagestani combat sambo world champion. Like you said, 14 fights. His only loss was to Chimaev. He's got 9 finishes. Guy's really slick with his Kimuras. I mean, you look at his record, 3 of his last 4 wins have come by Kimura. Like, as soon as the fight got on the ground in Contender Series, it was just locking up a Kimura and looked like he might have even like ripped the guy's arm out of the socket. I'm not entirely sure on that, but yeah, he's really good. I mean, the only question, I want to watch a little bit more tape on him and just see if he's a little bit chinny or if it was just Chimaev knocking him out because he got knocked out cold in that fight. So that would be the one concern with him. Like, we know he's a world class grappler. It's just like how durable is he on the feet, which I think is the question I'm still trying to answer at this point.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering, despite what happened in his last fight, I'm not sure it's really the best matchup given his strengths and his potential weakness against Phil Hawes, right? Power puncher. He was a collegiate wrestler, I believe, right? And no one's
Yep.
no one's taking no one's taking him down in the UFC. Not that he's had many attempts, but um, yeah, just something to keep in mind,
Yep.
right? Alaskarov has a huge potential DFS scoring skill. I'm just not sure if this is the matchup for it.
I agree, man. I think it's a really tough matchup. Like you said, Hawes has never been taken down in the UFC, and he throws heat. So I mean, if we think, Alaskarov, I haven't had a chance to like say this guy's name out loud enough, but
Nah, come on, dude. It
Aliskarov,
doesn't matter if it's Tuesday or Friday. You've never had enough time to do that. So
yeah. We'll call him Ikram. Um, I'm just making excuses. I do think it's a tough matchup, though, man. But the one thing about Haas that I think everyone kind of knows is like he's shown cardio issues in the past, so
true.
potentially maybe like a third round submission could be in play here, but we'll see. Another question with Haas is he got his. It appeared he got his knee shredded 6 months ago, but if you go look on his Instagram, 2 months later he's in Thailand training. So apparently that injury against the League wasn't as bad as it looked. That was my initial concern when I saw Hawes. Like, how is he back already? Like,
Right.
I was expecting him to be out for a year, but miraculously he did not shred his knee as originally thought, and he's back. And it is a tough matchup, man. He's got power and he's got the takedown defense, so I'm surprised they didn't give Ikram an easier matchup just to kind of build him up. Like they're throwing him right in there.
I think which speaks to what they think about him, right? So obviously, has a huge ceiling, potential champion in the future. We'll see, but yeah, obviously, great pedigree. Derek in the chat, what's up, Derek from the Occupy social team? He says, "What do you think about pricing being released this early?" I think everyone who's sharp, everyone who creates, maybe if you create content, I don't know. No one really likes the pricing out this early. And Derek says the only thing that FanDuel gets correct is that they wait until Thursday for their pricing. I wish DraftKings would do that too. I understand it, right? Like you want to get people excited for it, but nothing really great happens when it's released this early. And we kind of dodged the bullet that Evloev was 9,400 when his opponent dropped out.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. FanDuel waits until Thursday and they still sometimes get it wrong.
Yeah,
So,
it's true.
but yeah, I think releasing pricing a little bit later in the week would make sense. It seems like every time they release it before like Monday, something always changes. And then last week we had like 4 things change. Makes it really hard to deal with content when you have so many moving parts. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that they put it out so early, and then we have all this. Even if no one gets canceled, just the line moves, creates a lot of mispricing.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what I'm thinking too. All right. The other one, you
Yeah.
mentioned him a little bit earlier, is Raphael Esteban, who has had some line moves in his favor. And I don't want to get too excited, and I don't want to tip our hand too early here, but I know you and I were doing some charting, looking at some numbers. I mean, this dude seems like a DFS scoring machine. Now, granted, some of his earlier tape is tough to find. Even the commentators in his Contender Series fight Couldn't find his earlier tape, which says a lot because I imagine they try to give them as much available information as possible to do their jobs. But if you've ever tried to chart fights or watch tape, that you know that many of the pre-COVID or during COVID Shudo fights in Brazil were just basically impossible to find. There's buried with all the other global secrets. So from what we've seen, though, Jake Esteban, I'm not trying to get too excited here, but I imagine his OF index will be outrageously high, and I'm hoping the line move stays in check and he stays under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like an absolute gold mine for DFS. I mean, the guy's 11-0, 7 finishes, but the best part about him is he's taking people to the mat and just landing a ton of ground and pound. So I mean, that's based on his last 2 fights. So at least we do have 2 fights to look at. But yeah, that Shudo tape. I mean, I was looking all over for it. It apparently has been scrubbed off the internet.
Yeah.
So if anyone knows where it's at,
Let us know, please. I mean,
but yeah,
all
yeah,
that
right,
Shudo tape
definitely.
though, like we've tried to find this Shudo tape in the past. It's like many guys who have been on these Shudo cards have gone to the UFC. We just can never find them. But what we see from this guy, I mean, just crazy DFS potential, which is all we care about.
Yeah, I mean, just relentless pressure, constantly pushing forward, looking for takedowns, looking for ground and pound, just wearing people out on the mat until they basically quit, which is like exactly what you want, especially on DraftKings, with control time and ground strikes. But he should score well on both sides, and of course he's underpriced, and now the line's moving in his favor, which will drive up his ownership. But we'll see. It'll probably stay somewhat in check as long as he doesn't end up like negative 300.
I know. I will say the one encouraging thing, not that we need any more encouraging signs from him. Oftentimes when we chart fighters and we look at their previous fights and they attempt a lot of takedowns, a lot of ground control, great DFS scoring potential, we always wonder like, will they do that in a tougher matchup? Will they do that against guys who are good on the ground? However, if you look at his 2 fights that we have tape on, the commentators in the LFA fight were saying his opponent, maybe he shouldn't ground him because this guy is good at whatever the hell it was. I can't remember. He was good on the ground in some capacity. And Esteban was like, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna go after this guy. And then the last guy was throwing up 1,000 submissions. He was like, I'm staying down here. I'm just gonna ground and pound you. Second round starts, immediately takes him down. I don't care about any submissions. So clearly, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. He's gonna attempt his takedowns.
Yeah, man, that was pretty wild. That last opponent, the guy looked good until he completely gassed out. But
Totally. All right. You mentioned Braxton Smith earlier, and he is an underdog to Parker Porter. How long? For how long? We'll see. Um, I got to be honest, right? This guy does not look great. Anytime we've seen 5-0, 5 first-round finishes. I guess he lost his very first debut, right, against Chase Sherman. But you look at his 5 most recent fights against people that should not be fighting, right? Doesn't have the prototypical stature of a heavyweight fighter, but we're looking to fade these guys who have all finishes pre UFC. I think heavyweight can be a little bit different because all it takes is one punch, right? And certainly Porter is not the guy to test that theory.
yeah, I mean Porter, what he has like 7 first round finishes and like 8 losses or something terrible. So yeah, I mean this guy is completely round one KO or bust. No neck, super short and stocky. Like you said, 5-1 is 5 straight first round knockouts. He actually made his pro debut in 2014 against Chase Sherman. Gets knocked out in 128 seconds. Doesn't fight again for 8 years, and then comes back in May 2022 and just rattles off 5 straight knockouts. Gets complete bums. So you don't know about his cardio. He used to play football. He played running back. I was listening to an interview. He's like, "Yeah, I can run a 4.4." I'd be like, "Yeah, sure you can."
No chance, dude.
This guy, yeah, this guy is massive. But he's just, he's the dude. If he catches you with one punch, you're probably going out. But if he doesn't, I mean, I have to imagine that his cardio is going to go off the cliff. But we'll see. He's never been in a fight that made it past the 2 minute and 8 second mark.
Jesus, did you get any info on why he didn't fight for 8 years?
So in the interview, he was saying that his mom pushed him into fighting, and after his 2014 fight, she died, and he just kind of lost the passion for it. And then eventually, he kind of circled back around. He might have gone back to like arena football.
Mm.
I was a little unclear on the timeline of him playing football and him fighting, but he said that like after his mom passed, he just didn't have it in him anymore, and then I guess he kind of needed some money probably in 2022 and circled back around. And I mean, he's powerful. But yeah, he's sloppy heavyweight, round 1K or bust for sure. Potential to score 130, potential to score 3.
says both for him and his opponent. All right. Coming on down, we have two guys near the bottom. Well, one guy we don't exactly have yet. We talk about Diego Lopez. But for now, the cheapest fighter on the card, Rolando Bedoya, out of Peru. Not necessarily an MMA factory of any sorts, but against Chaos Williams. What did you see about from Bedoya in your early looks?
Yeah, I mean the guy's coming in with a good record, 13-1, 6 finishes, he's won 10 straight. But I wasn't very impressed with him. He looks super hittable, not very good movement. He fought at 155 earlier in his career and then moved up to 170 in 2017, which kind of explains why he looked kind of, I don't know, chunky, like not in great shape in a lot of those like 2017-18 fights. And then he's slowly been kind of improving his body a little bit. I mean, it was like to the point where like I didn't even recognize him in the first fight. I was telling you, I was like, wait, which one? I mean, just because like it was like this terrible tape, no names, no clock, no horn. I mean, yeah, but either way, we got the charting done, and I think that in fights that he wins in DFS, he's gonna score well.
Yes.
It's lots of pushing forward, lots of striking. He'll go for takedowns, decent control time, decent takedown defense. He's just really hittable. So it's like you don't want to play him when he's going against the power puncher. So the UFC matches him up with Chaos Williams in his debut.
Right, dude. I mean,
What
like,
could go wrong?
I'd be okay taking the shot on him and playing him against any other fighter, but if Chaos hits him with any of the 30 shots we saw him take in the past 3 fights per UFC, like he's going out, right? And there's a big reason Chaos is one of the biggest favorites on the card. So, yeah, just a really, really poor matchup for him. But I do agree with you that, maybe there's another chance. Maybe there's a guy second fight that we target that can score really big. I would love to see him, sorry, Rolando, score 3 points here, and then we get him a decent ownership the next time around. And I think the same could be said for the other guy who's stepping in against Evloev, Diego Lopez, who, when I saw him stepping in on a short notice, I just assumed he was terrible. Saw he lost on Contender Series, and I just assumed this was. I was like, I think I texted you. I was like, oh, Evloev was going to be like minus 1,000. But then I watched him, and you watched him, and he's actually not as bad as I initially anticipated. And it actually might not even be bad at all, but just a tough spot against Evloev.
Yeah, no, he's decent, man. 20-5, 18 finishes, BJJ black belt, jiu-jitsu background. He's like competed, outside MMA. Even in his loss on Contender Series, like he was throwing up submissions, looking dangerous, like the whole fight, and he gets poked in the eye in the 3rd round, goes to a technical decision, which he loses because he was getting controlled. Like Brito was in top position, but I mean, definitely the type of guy that can land a submission off of his back. And he showed a decent like left hook in some of his other fights. I mean, he was stumbling guys in some of his other recent fights. So yeah, I think he looks decent. I mean, he's not like a world beater, but he's definitely not one of these complete bums that they're just bringing in to fill a slot. Like he's going to be interesting, I think, in the future, and he's got the potential to to win fights at the UFC level.
For sure. Have you seen a line on that fight yet? I haven't.
I have not. I can check real. Yeah, I don't think we have anything out yet. Nah.
Yeah, so Evloev was priced as minus 300 or so against Bryce Mitchell, maybe a little bit less. He should be the biggest favorite on the card now, so I think that'll have him as the highest owned. But you never know, because Chaos could have, I imagine, will have a great round 1 line, which should push up his ownership as well. And it's not like salary is too tough to fit in this week, so we'll see. I think there are a couple ways the ownership breaks in the top of the salary range.
Yeah, I think Evil will be higher on than Chaos, just because Chaos is like gone the distance in like 3 of his last 4 fights. He's coming off a loss. He hasn't fought in a year. Like his buzz is probably at an all-time low. He landed those 2 like 30-second knockouts in his first 2 fights. He's kind of his last 4 made it to the 3rd round. 3 have gone the distance. So I feel like the buzz on him has come down some. So at 9,500, he's more expensive than Evliov, and I do think that Evliov going to be the biggest favorite when this line comes out. I don't know if he's going to be -400, -500. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what the bookmakers think of Lopez. I mean, we did have 2 short notice fighters win last week, so maybe
Crazy.
recency bias will play some sort of factor there. Yeah, I mean, absolutely nuts.
Fortunately I guess fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your viewpoint last week, Evloev is not Journey Newsom, so a little bit tougher test here for the debut and short notice fighter. Um, yeah, I think it's safe to say though he won't be -1,000 like maybe I initially thought. So a little bit more of a competitive fight. Someone in the chat, who is it? Let me see here. Let me pull it up. Patrick says any high-priced fighters that you're considering going under the field on. Will preface this once again saying that not all of our work is done, not even a fraction of it. Uh, all the official opinions will come out Friday. But Jake, just looking here, we have Kennedy at 9K, Alaskerov 91, Dober 92, Evloev 94, Chaos 95. Any initially right now you're like, I think I'm going to be underweight on these guys, or you still have to wait and see how the week plays out?
I mean, underweight's tricky because some of these guys, like I don't think I'm going to be super high in Kennedy, but my initial projections don't have him very high. So I'm not going to be like if I go low owned and if I don't play him very much and he ends up being low owned, then I'm not going under the field.
Sure.
It's tricky just because I don't think we're going to have many high owned fighters outside of Evliov. Maybe Chaos gets up there a little bit, but man, outside of those 5 round fighters and Evliov, I don't think we're going to have anyone above like 30% owned. So it's not really a week for me where I'm like, oh, I'm going to take the super hard stand. There's this 45, 50% owned guy that I think could fail just because there aren't any of those guys. So it's a little bit tricky. But I think Kennedy just the way he fights is going to have a tougher time paying off at 9K because he's normally losing fights early and then getting second or third round knockouts without a ton of volume.
True. That's very true. And again, yeah, a lot of this is ownership dependent. So let's see here. We mentioned Cejudo coming off a long layoff. The other fighter on this card coming off a long layoff is against your boy Charles Jourdain, is Cron Gracie, who last fought 2019 against Cub Swanson. Uh, Clearly a jiu-jitsu guy, right? Immediately subbed Alex Caceres, and then couldn't take down Cub Swanson. But Gracie uh, lauded for his BJJ skills. Any thoughts on this guy coming off a long layoff? Any thoughts on this matchup against Jourdain?
So I think one thing to note on the Cub Swanson fight is he didn't really try to take down Cub Swanson. So him and Cub
Mm,
Swanson fought like 15 years earlier when he was like 16 years old and Cub was like 21 or something in a jiu-jitsu match. And I don't know if they had some like bad blood or something, but Cron came in and didn't even attempt to take down until the third round of that fight. He was just like, I'm gonna fight Cub Swanson. And
great
his
idea.
dad was in his corner and his dad in an interview was like, I don't know what he was doing. That wasn't the game plan. Like, this kid's an idiot. Apparently him and his dad have had like a falling out. I think that Cron's just a head case, man. He moved to Montana from California, opened his own gym. Dude's like, I don't know, man. You can read about him. I'm not gonna like talk too much about him personally, but he just seems kind of like a nut. Like he's gonna do crazy things, and you can't rely on him to do like what would make sense, which explains a lot in the Cub Swanson fight where he clearly should have just been grappling the whole time. With that said, like why is he coming back after 3.5 years?
Right.
Like it would be insane for him to come back after 3.5 years and again not grapple. Like that would be the nuttiest thing ever. So I mean, you have to imagine he's going to grapple against Jourdain, who like his biggest weakness is grappling. Even though he's technically like a black belt, I mean, his defensive wrestling is horrendous. So I don't know, man. I think Cron Gracie is a complete wild card, but he is a world class jiu-jitsu player. So wild fight that could go a lot of ways depending on which Cron shows up and who knows where he's at right now. It's been 3.5 years. I mean, I know he opened his own gym and he's doing a lot of like jujitsu stuff, but how much MMA training has he been doing? I mean, honestly, I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper in him as the week goes on, but I think he's definitely a wild card. I think there's gonna be people taking really hard stands on both sides of that fight.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like I didn't know that. I haven't watched the Cub Swanson fight. I was just box score watching earlier today, and just looking through some of his fights, and yeah, that's super interesting. So obviously, common sense would say let's grapple and let's just get the quick submission, and get out of here. However, on the main card, Jourdain likes to put on a show. Like based on what you're telling me, I would not be shocked, I guess, if he just gets drawn into this firefight and wants to stand and trade for 15 minutes because he wants to put on a show, or Jordan talks some shit and now they're fighting, right? Like I don't know, right? Like I feel like that could happen. However, clearly
Right.
high upside if he does grapple. So
Yeah. Yeah. Agree.
all right, we'll get out of here pretty shortly. Just a reminder that again, this is early in the week. Let us know your thoughts, either in Discord or if you're watching this now or on replay. Go ahead and leave a comment. Even if you're watching this live, leave a comment for us and let us know what you thought of this. Uh, it's great. I hate it. I would like to see this. I don't want to hear this. I don't care about Tuesday shows. Whatever. If you're watching this and you hear me say this, please leave a comment and let us know. Your feedback is invaluable. We always try to base our content around what our members and our viewers want. So please leave a comment. I want to see like 20, 30, 40, 50 comments on this. Let us know what you think. So, again, Friday is when everything will be out at MMADFS.com and OccupyFantasy.com. So make sure you check back there. The links are in the description as they normally are. But if you're always watching, you know where to find everything. So, Jake, we'll get out of here. Thoughts on the dogs really quickly. Any dogs stand out? Any buy low spots? Any, I don't know, just anything we haven't really talked about that stands out to you this early?
Yeah, I mean, some initial guys that kind of popped out to me was the Ribeiro and Holmes fight. You know, both those guys are coming off losses. Holmes is probably definitely fighting for his job at 1 and 2. Ribeiro got knocked out in the second round. You know, I think on the mat, Holmes would have a big advantage there, and I think on the feet, he'll probably get knocked out. I think both guys are probably going to get somewhat overlooked. At least my initial take is just based on coming off losses, and I mean, really, neither one of them has ever had any success in the UFC. So, like, what are people going to get excited about there? But I know Ribeiro was kind of popular in his last fight, so we'll see. But potentially overlooked there. And I mean, Parker Porter, man, if Braxton Smith is like just a complete fraud, and Parker Porter can grapple, if he takes Braxton Smith down just to get out of the first round, I mean, could potentially put up a huge striking number, maybe get a late round finish. I think that Parker Porter is kind of a joke to a lot of people right now because of like him getting finished in the first round in his last 2 fights. Big line move against him. I think that could be a really big leverage spot. I mean, not a dog, but I think that guy's interesting. And then, I mean, we talked about Cron Gracie. I mean, I think it's a fight that could go all sorts of directions, but an immediate submission is, very much in play, and he's only 7,500. So I think that definitely jumps out. But I think there's a lot of dogs, man. I think this is an interesting slate. I mean, you can go through the list of dogs and make a case for most of them. I would argue.
I agree. What about the two female fights? We have Andrade and Zhao Nan, and we have Johnny Roba and Rodriguez. Generally, I would think
Yeah,
I would think better real life fights than DFS fights, but I assume the ownership is going to be pretty low in all four of these fighters. Maybe not Andrade.
yeah. I mean, I could see Andrade probably will still carry some ownership, although it seems like the field has like a love hate relationship with her. Like sometimes she's like surprisingly low owned, and other times she's super popular. She's coming back down to 115 here, which she has successfully gone back and forth between 115 and 125. For a while now. So like most fighters, that's kind of a red flag when you're switching weight classes. But with her, she just seems to make it work. I mean, probably could. She's like 5'1", and it's just like water weight. I don't even know. But we saw Jan get dominated on the mat by Esparza. So if Andrade looks to wrestle more, potentially high upside. Obviously, high upside regardless based on her striking. And I mean, we're always interested in playing Andrade.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be a high volume fight overall. So if she loses, I mean, I think that, Jan could also score well. The other fight I'm less excited about, Rodriguez has shown that she cannot get submitted. She beat Mackenzie Dern. And it wasn't like a super exciting fight. She's just like did a good job of not, playing around on the mat very much. I want to say in like the second round, she got controlled in that fight. That was a while ago. But I could see this being similar, where it's just her kind of being defensive, but I mean, she'll be low owned. She's coming off the first early loss of her career. Lamoche finished her in the third round. So, I mean, her ownership will definitely be lower, although even the money line has gone in their favor.
Yeah, but also just like with Santos and Esteban right below her, higher money lines, and not a female. I gotta imagine she's. I mean, I would be shocked if she's like not like 9% or something.
My initial projection is 10% on her.
So. There we go. See this? Look, this early in the week, we already got the vibes going. And this says Derek in the chat says, "Love the Tuesday content because it's a win-win. If we get it right, we have these early bold takes and we look very smart. And if we're wrong, we just blame it on the timing. So I like that call.
It's a good call. I like it.
All right, guys, that'll do it. Jake, anything else you want to get out there into the world before the official content comes out Friday?
I don't think so, man. Good luck to everyone that's got the champ tickets this week, and hopefully you guys make it to the second round. And it looks like a great tournament slate for anyone that doesn't, man. Like last two slates sucked. This one is going to make up for the last 2 weeks of 11 fight cards. I think this is going to be a good one.
Could not possibly agree more. So if you like this video, again, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel, get notified when we go live, upload any of these videos. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video. And again, if you made it this far and you've watched the video, please comment and let us know what you think. I want to see a bunch of comments when I get back to see what you guys think of it, and we can alter our game plans moving forward. Again, MMADFS.com and IKRAFantasy.com is where you can find the official write-ups, picks, model rankings, tools for MMA DFS for UFC 288. All that's available on Friday. So for Jake, I'm Brian. Thank you for listening this early in the week. We always appreciate it. You tuning in no matter what day of the week it is. And good luck at 288.